and welcome to the second episode of Culture of Caring. We're so happy today to be able to have a guest on, our very first guest. But before we get started with her, I just wanted to share a little bit about what we're going to be focusing on for the next couple of episodes. So Mommies in Need went through a really deep exercise with both our staff and board to be able to dig into who we are, what our mission, vision, and values really look like. And that we came out of that with the mission of caring for kids so families can access healthcare. And the values that we came up with, we're really proud of how we were able to kind of put that into words and start to use that on a daily basis within the organization. So today we're going to focus on our value, which is that we want to be collaborative. And the way that we describe that is that we aim to create a vibrant community that works together towards our shared goals. We recognize that we must listen to and value the input of all stakeholders. We believe in a mindset of abundance instead of scarcity and collaboration instead of competition. And what that means is that we truly believe that we can do so much more great work if we are working with other organizations, with businesses, and really truly being a partner with those organizations and businesses. And so today I've brought on one of our greatest partners, so Lisa Kroencke, who is the executive director of the Magdalen House.
From the very beginning, there was something different about the way that I drank versus my friends.
Once I put it in my body, I can't stop.
I didn't have anything left.
The destruction.
Bad person.
I was scared.
Very sick.
I could not stop drinking.
I couldn't stop.
I was never gonna stop drinking.
I was afraid to go in. I'd never been here. I didn't know what to expect when I walked in that door.
And nobody asked me, why'd you drink? They knew why I drank. I'm an alcoholic, that's why I drink.
And I remember walking through the door and the laughter and the vulnerability and the warmth.
There's just something really magical about this place.
I didn't have health insurance. And actually, when we first found the Magdalen House, it said at no cost.
Someone allowed me to stay here for free for 2 weeks.
Seeing a woman that you helped helping another woman. It's like the greatest pyramid system ever. Like they say, well, what can I do? You've helped me. What you can do is you can give back. You can give it to another woman. That's what this house does, is it allows you to have a place, it creates an environment where you can continue that walk.
By women, for women, of women.
This house is really made up of the women who've come here, who are here, and who will be here in the future.
What is happening here is happening for all the right reasons. That there is an opportunity, more than anything, there is hope. There is a solution.
The wall makes me happy.
Every time I look at the wall, I smile because it represents the collective joy that we feel together.
When I see the wall, it makes me smile. Because those are my sisters.
First time I saw that wall, I realized I wasn't unique.
You see the names on the wall, you know the women who've come before you, and it gives you hope that maybe someday that you can be on the other side of the wall.
I would tell other dads and husbands, fight till the end, hang in there. And if you can get your daughter to Magdalen House or your wife, get them there as soon as possible.
Don't ever give up.
I have a purpose in life.
I don't ever have to struggle like that again.
So Lisa, can you just tell me a little bit about Magdalen House and what you guys do?
Absolutely. We were founded in 1987, and our main mission is for women to achieve sobriety and sustained recovery through 12-step principles. So what we do is we have created this environment where women can come, they can get sober, because this is about alcoholism, and then we give comprehensive programming that they can stay in recovery for the rest of their lives. So not only do we help them get sober, but we also give them the opportunity and the environment in which to recover for a lifetime of spiritual tools so that they can maintain their recovery for a lifetime. So
wonderful. And so, Lisa, what about Magdalen House made you want to get involved?
Well, the interesting thing about that is I have been in recovery myself since 2007. And about 2 months, thank you, into my recovery, I had a woman mentor tell me about this little house in East Dallas where she had found recovery, and she wanted me to go there and learn more about the agency, but also really help the women who were there. So it was a service commitment. So I walked into the doors 2 months into my sobriety, and I never left. I fell in love with the mission. I fell in love with the vision of what they were doing. I also fell in love with the fact that it's where I found my people. It is where I felt more comfortable being transparent, being authentic. And not just that, I found women that I could actually help. And when I started helping others is when I found not just freedom from alcoholism, but I found a purpose in my life. And I also started to understand where the shame and the guilt of my experience and my stories and even my children, when I started sharing those stories with other women, then I myself started to feel more empowered and the shame and guilt started to dissipate. And so the more I spent time there, the more I shared in my experiences, the more I felt like that is where I was needed to be really for a lifetime. I got involved with the board of directors in my second year there, and I came on staff in really late 2015, and so I'm still there. And so we have grown, and we really are trying to get out and get our message out to more and more women here in Dallas-Fort Worth. And one of the agencies that we partner with is Mommy's in Need, and you guys help us do that.
You. You know, I think that what you said about really taking your own trauma and using that, I mean, I talked about that last week of when you go through something really difficult, that you have a choice about, does that become what defines me for the rest of my life in a negative way, or do I have the chance to do that in a positive way?
Exactly.
And so I love that that was a piece of your recovery. Absolutely. And I think it is so important for so many people, whatever the trauma might be, is that by sharing that story and by being open and vulnerable with it, that's how you help a lot of people.
That's exactly what I found there. That's why I never left.
Oh. I love that. So let's talk a little bit about what we do with Mommies in Need. So what people might not know and just want to share in case you don't already know this. So Mommies in Need, we have always defined a health crisis, a health issue, to include mental health and addiction recovery, because those are absolutely medical issues. And we know that parents are not getting the kind of treatment they need because they have children. And so, Lisa, I'd love to hear about, both, working with Mommies in Need and just in general, the need for childcare in a space like women going into recovery, and if you see that a lot.
I do, absolutely. More than 65% of the women that come to us have children. And one of the barriers for getting help in treatment, because only 1 in 15, so let me back up. 1 in 11 women in the US are alcoholic, equates locally to over 250,000 in Dallas-Fort Worth alone, women. So when we're talking about reaching more women, one of the biggest barriers to going away for treatment is that women don't have childcare, and they're the primary givers in a lot of cases. So what happens is that they will say no, and they will continue in their addiction, which affects entire families, it affects the communities. And so one of the things that we learned is that we needed to provide some kind of childcare, or at least a partner or an outlet for these women, so that was no longer a barrier. Because if 65% of our women who are coming in have minor children, that's going to affect a huge population of the women that we can help. So it is a barrier, especially during COVID and the things that we were seeing during COVID, because then they didn't have the caregivers. They had access, but maybe they couldn't even come into their houses because nobody was going anywhere. So it created even more of a barrier. So it is a huge deterrent. And if 1 in 15 women are not only are seeking treatment, then what we can do is if we can give that opportunity to women, then we can reach more and more women, because that's no longer a barrier because of partners like Mommies in Need.
Well, and we were able to, we've provided on-site care
Yes.
for women's groups
Yes.
that had children there.
Yes.
And then now, since we opened Annie's Place, have been able to really welcome a couple of people from Magdalen House to use the center.
Absolutely.
So we love being able to do that. You know, I'd like to go back to something you said in talking about COVID and what were the effects of the pandemic, particularly on women that maybe were already in recovery or that developed alcohol problems during the pandemic? And was that something that you saw a lot of?
Absolutely. And I'm a data person, so I go
Yes.
back to the data. But there was a spike in alcohol deaths from 2019 to 2021, 25% spike in alcoholic deaths. So women were not able to, there were so many barriers, not just financial and the child care barriers, but also treatment centers and places in community were closing. So they didn't even have a place to go. So what we saw, the need that we filled is we started virtual programming at that point. And so what we did, actually the pandemic is one of the best things that happened to our agency. We look at the experience in gratitude because of that, we were able to think out of the box. We never would have offered virtual programming if it hadn't been for the pandemic. So now, not only do we help women in the local community who cannot access us, but now we've gone national with our virtual programming. So the pandemic helped us to create spaces where we would never have thought of before. And so I talk about this all the time where, yes, it affected women, alcoholic women adversely, for sure. But what it did was it got us to think out of the box where we could reach those women. And now we can reach them virtually in their homes, and then they can come to us for ongoing help. We have a program that's in-house, which you guys help us with greatly. It's 14 days. Women can come into an in-house treatment program. We also have an out-of-house program, which is our outpatient program or out client program, which is 3 months, 3-phase structured program. And you guys help us with both of those programs so that our women can participate. And we started doing that right before the pandemic. And then the virtual program has just, it's just really gone very successful.
So if people want to access the virtual program,
yes.
how would they, is that open to the whole country? Are people from everywhere able to do that?
Absolutely, it is. So the virtual program, all you have to do is go to our website, you click on the intake, and then you go in for a phone screen. And so once you've passed that phone screen, once there's certain criteria for women to join our virtual program, women from all over the country, actually all over the world, have started enjoying our programs because the curriculum that we have is something that you don't have to do in-house. We can teach, we can facilitate. It's all run by volunteers, and you can participate in your own home, in your own living room. So it really is accessible for all.
It's wonderful is that you were actually able to expand your reach
Yes.
and the number of women served because of the pandemic.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a trend that I'm seeing a lot of in other nonprofits saying, gosh, this was hard, but in some ways we learned lessons that we might not have ever learned, or it might have taken us a long time to get there.
Yes.
Right? Of
Yes.
being able to do that. So I think that that's an important thing to remember is that as we're hopefully coming out of this,
Yes.
it is the chance to now go,
Yes.
okay, we don't have to go back to what we were doing before. In some cases, it allows us to kind of have a springboard for what we
Yes.
can do in the future.
Yes. It's so interesting that you talk about that because I remember a conversation that you and I had. I was in a parking lot and we wound up talking for an hour. And because you and I were talking about, okay, how can we make what we're doing work in-house? And so you helped us at that point to for women to be able to talk to some of your caregivers so that they could participate in our program separately. I'll never forget that because that started me thinking, wait a second, if we can collaborate with Mommies in Need, because you guys were thinking out of the box, then we can have a separate program. They can be in front with your caregivers, and then they can also be on the phone with our program facilitators, and we can do it at the same time. I think it was really important to collaborate with other nonprofits to figure out how we can come up with solutions out of the box, and we can work together on that. I love that phone call.
Well, I always love talking to you, which is why I had you on as my first guest. But I think that since the topic of this is collaboration,
Yes.
and one of the things in that statement I read that I think is so important is that our belief is in a world of abundance
Yes.
and not scarcity, because I think scarcity mindset is what causes some older school nonprofits to be like, no, 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 our donors are things.
Yes.
And what we're seeing is just the trend that, well, first of all, funders really prefer when you work collaboratively.
Absolutely.
But the impact that you're able to make when you surround your families with those additional resources.
Absolutely.
And so, I'd just love to hear about what are some other collaboration kinds of things that you've done, or your theory about, how you feel about collaboration.
I think that the main success of a thriving community is a very collaborative nonprofit sector. I think that's really one of the reasons that Dallas-Fort Worth has such a thriving philanthropic community, is because the nonprofits are starting to reach out to each other and utilize our strengths, our mission. And one of the things that I think is very important is that we have executive directors and CEOs talking to each other and not being afraid. There are enough funds and enough donors to go around, but what we really need to do, if our mission is to encourage and build up communities to fill the gaps in what our missions do, then we need to do that together. The money, the funders, all of that will come as long as the communities are strengthened by what we do. I feel strongly about that.
That is a great answer, and I think it is something that is, and as you said, Dallas-Fort Worth, really, I think it's caused a lot of innovation in the nonprofit sector here, which you don't see necessarily everywhere else.
I agree.
And so that's been really inspiring to me. And that's the reason I actually created this podcast, is because as hard as things have been in the past, is it's the chance to constantly see other people trying to make a difference.
Yes.
That inspires me to every day be like, oh my gosh, I met the most amazing person today who's overcome these obstacles and done this great thing. And so that's been a tremendous source of joy for me, is to really get to see that happening.
Agree.
So, Lisa, we are, one of our other things is that we try to be authentic. We try to value what we call productive failure.
Yes.
And so on every episode, I want to share some failed so hard moments. So is there something you could share with us about maybe a time that you had a failure, but that was turned out to be something that you could learn from?
Absolutely. Many experiences that have led to innovative solutions. One of those was actually my inexperience as an early on as executive director. I really felt like we could, because I'm an alcoholic woman myself, I felt like I knew what these alcoholic women needed, from job opportunities to health care, the way that you would take care of yourself, to education opportunities, even to family therapy and stuff. So what we decided to do early on as an agency was to meet all of the needs, or try to provide the resources under our roof. And so that did not work. And so what came out of those ideas were that, why would we try to go outside of our mission and mission creep when we have so many nonprofits in Dallas that are doing what they do really well? One of those failed experiments was that we had volunteers. I'm kind of embarrassed to talk about it. We had volunteers come in and take care and try to provide child care to the women who are in the program. Well, that didn't work out very well, because some of our volunteers weren't equipped, they weren't trained, and they were not reliable. So what we did was we were introduced to Mommies in Need, and Mommies in Need came in and provided trained healthcare, trained professionals that would come in and would watch on campus, in-house, watch the women's children so that they could participate in our program. What that did for me was it opened up my mind to, wait a second, let's don't go outside of our mission, because there are so many nonprofits in Dallas that can provide therapy, that can provide trauma resources, that can provide health care, that can provide job opportunities and interview skills and diets and all the things that, if we focus on getting these women sober, getting into a program of recovery, we can provide resources from other nonprofits that we do not have to provide. What that does, it makes us more efficient, more effective, and it provides collaborative partnerships. And we have over 130 now partnerships in Dallas. And Mommies in Need was one of the first ones that really, I was like, oh no, that makes so much sense. So I attribute you guys, to opening up our minds to collaboration instead of trying to do everything for these women, which we don't need to do.
Oh, well, I didn't know that. So thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
That is really cool to hear.
It was really,
and
it was helpful.
I also know that we actually get asked a lot, like, well, why don't you just staff your child care center with volunteers? And because then you wouldn't have to pay anyone.
Exactly.
And it is truly a difficult profession that should be left to the professionals who know what they're doing.
Yes.
And so what we've done is we now have, our licensed teachers in every room, and then volunteers come and are an extra set of hands, right?
Yes.
So you can absolutely have a meaningful impact as a volunteer, but you do need to have the accountability of having someone on staff.
Exactly.
And, there every single day. So.
And that's exactly what we do. It's like if we had volunteers coming in and facilitating our program or curriculum around alcoholism, that it wouldn't work. We have to have the professionals. We have volunteers that come in, much exactly like your business model.
Lisa, it has been so nice talking to you. Is there anything else you'd like to mention, or is there anything to plug that you guys have going on soon, or do you have any events or anything that you'd like to share with the community?
Well, we do have an event in November, which is our next event. It's our Leave a Legacy event that we have every year at the Rustic. But the one thing that I would love just to end with is I really want to thank you, because what Mommies in Need has done is given not only our program participants, but you've also helped some of our staff members so that we could actually hire them, single moms that had a place to take their children, and it's made our agency stronger. And so I really value our collaboration. I really value your friendship, and I just want to thank you for everything that you've done for women in Dallas. It really has helped our agency tremendously.
Thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome.
And I would echo back the thanks to you guys and what you do. And I have heard constantly when people talk about Maggie's, it is with such respect and fondness, and that it was life-saving in a lot of cases.
Thank you.
So we're really happy to have you on. Well, we're going to exit out with a video testimonial from one of the children who comes to Annie's place from the Magdalen House. So now let's hear from little Ellie.
I love Annie so much!
What's your favorite thing to do there?
I love to play.
To play? And do you love your teachers there?
Yeah.
Who's your favorite teacher?
Miss Micah.
Aww.
Miss Micah is my friend.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on our second episode of Culture of Caring. Please remember to rate and review and subscribe and share with friends. We can't wait to have more of these kinds of conversations. And if you have an idea for a guest, or if you would like to sponsor a podcast, please go to our website at mommiesinneed.org, click on Culture of Caring, and then you can find everywhere you can contact us. So, Lisa, I'd like to just thank you one more time for coming on today. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you. And we're really grateful for everything that you do. And thank you for being here.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure.
And where can people find Magdalen House?
Oh, yes. Thank you for asking. It's magdalenhouse.org. It's MAGDALEN house.org. So any information about alcoholic women, if you know of anyone who needs help or a family member, just please go to our website and we can provide some resources.
I love that. Thank you so much, Lisa. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in today.